Hi everyone, my name is Alan Sadoun. I'm a renter in Cambridgeport. I'm one of the co-chairs of Better Cambridge. Thank you, Lori, for having us. This is going to be a really quick overview. So if anyone wants more details, you can go to the website that we have. It's cambridgemmh.org. It'll be at the bottom of the later slides. Um, just to define the term missing middle housing, like Lori said in her email, missing middle housing refers to housing like you see in this picture that's at a middle level of density, somewhere between detached single family homes and high rises. So we're talking three deckers, we're talking townhouses, we're talking fourplexes. Historically, this is the kind of housing that made Cambridge affordable for generations of immigrants in the past. And the reason it's called missing is that in the 1920s, Cambridge wrote its zoning codes in line with the vision that Will was talking about to make it harder to build these kinds of missing middle housing. And since then, it largely hasn't been built in Cambridge anymore. And that's a huge shame because for a number of different reasons, this kind of small multifamily housing is exactly the kind of housing we need right now. Um, there are three big reasons why we need small multifamily housing. The first is just a question of right sizing. Most single family and two family homes are over 1,000 square feet of living space per dwelling unit, often much more. That's larger than most household needs. Most Cambridge households are only one or two people. So if you don't build missing middle housing, you end up with a lot of young couples or empty nesters taking up larger housing and paying more for it. The second reason, probably the biggest reason for most people, of course, is cost. A condo in a missing middle style building, even a relatively large condo like a 3-bedroom home, goes for much less money than a single family home, puts homeownership within reach for a lot more people, um, because the missing middle style building makes better use of the lot area and the unit sizes are smaller. The data on this slide is from 2015, but in the years since then, the gap in price between single family homes and condos has gone only larger. I think the single family home price is now at $2 million, whereas the 3-bedroom condo price is still around 850,000. But there's also a huge environmental reason to prefer multifamily housing. Even small apartment buildings are much more energy efficient per household than single family homes because, well, partly because they share walls and they're stacked on top of each other. Um, but also the walkable density that small multifamily housing allows for, where you don't have to drive everywhere, is the primary reason why Cambridge and Boston and the inner core of the greater Boston area have way less CO2 emissions than the suburbs. If we want to be fighting climate change, we have to be building more multifamily housing and letting more people live the kind of lifestyle and have the economic opportunity that we love to have in Cambridge. Um, so I guess I'll blitz through this slide because Will already talked about the much of it, but I just wanted to highlight the point that historically the reason that Cambridge stopped missing middle housing from being built in the 1920s was not in spite of the fact that it makes neighborhoods more diverse and affordable. It was because it makes neighborhoods more diverse and affordable, and they wanted to prevent that. And you can just see the correlation here, which lines up the same way with the redlining maps Will was talking about, that the neighborhoods with the most exclusive zoning are also the neighborhoods with the fewest residents of color. One more motivation slide. I want to show you what the effects of our current zoning rules are in practice. In yellow here, we have a rendering of a fairly typical building of Cambridge. It's a 2-family house on Fairweather Street. In here, we have the largest possible thing you'd be allowed to build under current rules if you tried to build it today. You wouldn't be able to make full use of the lot. And in fact, because of minimum parking requirements, you wouldn't even be able to turn the extra space on the lot into greenery. You would have to pave it over for parking. And this isn't a hypothetical. Again and again and again, when buildings get built in Cambridge and when buildings get renovated in Cambridge, this is what we see. So all of these pictures here are modern construction in Cambridge neighborhoods, post 2000. The one on the bottom left here, this is in the port. It's right by Senate Park. It's a single family house. It's 2,000 square feet. And it went for $2 million. It went on the market for, I think, $1.9 million a week ago. Our zoning rules, again and again, they create this smaller number of more expensive houses that don't help the neighborhood housing shortage at all and don't make things that are more within reach for more families because they're not allowed to take up full use of the lot. And to make it worse, the parking exacerbates our urban heat island effect, our flood runoff problem, and our carbon emissions. So there's just a ton of reasons to make it possible to build missing middle housing all over Cambridge. And the rules that stop it from happening are not just the explicit bans that I showed in the previous slide, but also just the rules on lot coverage and parking restrictions and dimensional standards. Okay. Becca, do you want to introduce yourself and talk about the actual proposal?
Sure. My name is Becca Schofield. I'm an affordable housing developer and Cambridge native and a co-chair of ABC. And thanks, Lori, for the invitation, and see a lot of familiar faces and names. So it's great to be here. And sorry, my dog is barking in the background a little bit. But I did want to just kind of build on what Will and Alan have already talked about, and discuss missing middle housing here, and the idea that this zoning category would permit up to 3 stories of multifamily housing, taking up 40% of the lot. And because we're removing off-street parking requirements as part of this proposal, the remainder of the lot could be green open space. So we're doing a combination of preserving and allowing existing buildings to remain multifamily, small multifamily, continue to provide smaller units that can suit more types of households, more types of people that we want to live here, different family sizes, different age ranges, different racial and ethnic backgrounds, all of the things that we think are really important to a diverse and exciting city. This would also make our city more walkable and reduce heat island effect, and all the other pieces of, greener and less pavement and, denser development. So I think that's all key as part of this proposal, and those are our motivations, and we just wanted to be clear about that up front. Alan, if you want to click to the next slide. We also wanted to just reference a lot of the other things that are happening as part of making Cambridge more inclusive, more sustainable in the way housing is developed and planned. So we do have 20% inclusionary zoning for these larger scale mixed use buildings that we see in Kendall or Alewife, and that does produce more affordable units on the market, which is valuable. The affordable housing overlay, which was recently passed and ABC was a huge proponent of, and we're really excited about, that's a great tool that can be used throughout the city, particularly for projects that are supported by nonprofits. It allows them to compete on the market, and get more sites, build their pipeline for affordable units, for 100% affordable housing. And as an affordable housing developer, that's valuable to me personally, and think it's a great resource. We also think that building smaller, denser units is a great opportunity for programs like Homebridge, which can provide more affordable homeownership opportunities for folks. And again, just to kind of talk about this gap that Alan's mentioned and that we think MMH can fill. This is targeted on smaller lots where affordable housing developments wouldn't necessarily be feasible, because you can build maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 units instead of the larger scale, like 10, 12, 16, 20 units that you see in most affordable developments. So the idea is that you could, like for smaller lots, you could make sure that you're not wasting space there in the examples that Alan highlighted. The MMH petition also aims to make neighborhoods more equitable. We think that, if you can build some smaller units and more of them, then even if the overall cost of construction needs to be captured in the way units are rented and sold, you still have, you have $2 million and that's one unit. If you can build 4 and it's 500, that's affordable for more people. And even though we understand that the Cambridge market is unpredictable and costs of housing are just wild, we hope that this does provide more access. So just wanted to highlight those pieces, and then I think turn it over to Will to close out. Or Chris, or
Will or Chris, I think, right?
I can close this out. So just to give like a brief overview of sort of where the petition's at in the process. So basically throughout the fall and into January, basically we had a process of sort of initial drafting and coalition building, where sort of we centered the goals that we talked about earlier of sustainability and affordability. And Chris actually was very involved in sort of drafting zoning language that would meet those goals, and as well as legalizing the multifamily housing that we already see in lots of the city. And then in January, we had a sort of a public signature gathering campaign to sort of start the conversation publicly in a broader way, and then filed and referred the petition to the ordinance. So we filed the petition in February, and it was referred to the ordinance committee. And then basically we see this as part of a broader community conversation. So Councillor Nolan also recently introduced an exciting proposal to end single-family zoning that was discussed in a neighborhood and long-term planning committee meeting in February. So basically, we're excited now to continue this conversation in a more public way, basically. So looking forward, there's going to be a sort of a discussion and recommendation of a petition in the planning board, and then discussion and amendments in the ordinance committee, and then hopefully the petition will be ordained in the full council in May or June. So just to highlight, as I said earlier, basically we see zoning as a really important tool to shape the city according to our values, which for us are sustainability and affordability, and also recognize that evaluations of the ideal Cambridge vary. And we're also a group of volunteers, so we haven't spent sort of like full time for months working on this, and we would love everyone's feedback about changes to make the proposal stronger. If there are aspects of the proposal that you favor and aspects that you don't think would improve the city, all of that would be really helpful to know. And there's still going to be a lot more public conversation and amendment process around that. So just really excited to have the rest of this conversation.